Awesome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drummers Education Connection. Rick Stojak brought us in with the new theme music. I am Bart Robley, and I am here with Chip Ritter. Everybody, please clap for Rick's incredible drumming.
Thank you.
Rick Stojak down in San Diego, Jeremy Steinkohler in the Bay Area. We want to thank you guys for watching us on YouTube and on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. And to all the people that watch every week, we have officially named our fans. You guys are deckheads. We have just decided. We decided that this morning. You're all deckheads. Okay.
Dude, I don't know if that's going to fly.
Hey, you're the one that brought up with it. It was your idea, Rick.
Like a deckhead?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Bart. I'm a deckhead. And so anyway, you guys are all deckheads. We want. Hey, admitting that you have a problem is the first step to recovery, right? We want to ask everybody, if you want to support the show, go to Patreon, click the button, do your thing, and it would be great. Help us keep the lights on here. We have a new subject or a new thing that we are calling "What's Good." Rick, give us some "What's Good" theme music quickly.
Oh,
yeah, we need good things.
All right.
There you go. So what's good or good things? So I'm gonna throw it to you, Rick. Tell us what's good in your life. What's happening? What's going on with you?
Man, I am so excited. I have a new Roland SPD SX Pro sampler pad, and that's what I've been playing. Thank you, Norm at Guitar Center in La Mesa, San Diego. This thing, it's got 1,500 sounds in it. It's got loops like crazy, and it's just so fun to play. You know, so we have loops of all different kinds of styles. You know, and it's just sort of a magic machine, and so I'm really excited to play
magic machine. I love it.
And integrate it into my playing. Oh, listen. Yeah, so it's so fun. It's
cool.
So I'm really all about the hybrid acoustic electronic percussion stuff. Why? Because it's fun.
Rick, we should do a whole show at one point on hybrid acoustic electronic kits.
That'd be a blast.
Or I should say, you should do a whole show.
Exactly. We'll just sit here and shut up.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeremy, your turn. What's good with you? What's going on with you, man?
Let's see. Lots of gigs coming up. March is super duper busy. And also going on some college tours with my kid. So super excited about that. We're going down to LA in February. We're going to check out UCLA and USC and Stanford up here. And then spring break, we're going to the East Coast, Berkeley School of Music, New England Conservatory, Manhattan School of Music, Juilliard, Johns Hopkins. So excited for that. Check out some of those music departments, make some connections, hand everybody copies of my book. But most importantly, check them out to see if they're a good fit for my kid.
Jeremy, I think that would be an amazing show once you've done all that to talk about, you know, what you found at each of the universities. It might help people make those decisions.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Chip, what's new with you, buddy? What's good with
you?
Not
much. I got my drummer's guide to juggling video available on my website, chipritter.com. I'm teaching lessons, doing my thing. I got some great reviews on Yelp and Google my business. I got some good reviews for my teaching, and I'm just doing good teaching and playing at church.
Right on, man.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
Keeping the flame going.
What's new with you, Bart?
I got this. That's it.
What is that?
That's a cable. That's all.
It looks kind of limp. What is that?
It is, unfortunately, but it's a good cable. No, being my normal dumb self. I got a lot going on, man. We've got the new song came out last week. I talked about that. Still Standing. That was a lot of fun. Been getting some really great reviews on that. I couldn't believe it. It was on YouTube for one day, and I got 8,100 views on it in a day. Yeah, I couldn't believe it,
Dude,
man.
that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And great tune. I'm very proud of it. Had a guest player on there, Bobby Randall, who played in a band called Sawyer Brown. He was in Charlie Daniels' band. He was in a band called Confederate Railroad. Nathan Smith engineered and produced his guitar tracks on the song, and Nathan is nominated for a Grammy with Dolly Parton. And they didn't win it, but he was nominated for a Grammy. So I'm excited about that tune. You can check that out on YouTube at my channel. The song's called Still Standing. It's under the banner of the Ruins. Sam Morrison Band is getting ready to hit road, pulling up anchors here in a few weeks and heading out to all over the place, man. This year is going to be a really busy year for us, but we're going, this first run's going to take us through Texas and Arizona. So I'm be on the road out there playing the drums, and I got somebody fooled into believing that I know what I'm doing because I get paid to do all that stuff, and I'm so blessed and so thankful. So yeah, so that's what's new with me. So
All right.
Anyway, so today's episode, before I throw this out there, what I do want to say to everybody, if you guys have ideas for episodes, you're like, gosh, I got a question for Rick, or I got a question for Chip, or I would like to hear, the guys' take on, subject X, put it in the comments, send it to us in a message, whatever. Because today's show is from a comment that we got from a listener last week who's a friend of Jeremy's. So, Jeremy, why don't you tell us what today's show is and what it's about and who your friend is and what they wanted to know?
Sure. Gary Jack here. He's a fellow drummer educator based in the East Coast. He and I ended up studying with the same teacher back when I was a teenager. He was a little bit older in New York City. Norman Grossman, really terrific drummer and educator. Anyway, Gary emailed and said, hey, I've been getting a lot of gigs at the last minute, and I get a call and the gig is tomorrow, or the gig is in 3 days, and I have, none or just very little time to do any kind of preparation for it, and wanted our take on how to handle those kinds of gigs, what to expect of yourself, what to expect of the experience, what's realistic, how do you survive, essentially, and do your job as best you can with very little preparation time.
Awesome. That's fantastic. That's actually a great subject. And I think we've all found ourselves in there. So, let's do this. Let's throw it to our buddy down in San Diego, Rick. Rick, how do you go about preparing for a last minute gig where little to no preparation, you may or may not know the material? What do you do? Talk to us, man.
Right. I pre-record the drums and hit play.
I use an iPod.
I hear it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Old school.
No. It might depend on whether it's a cover gig or an original gig.
Yeah.
But let's just take covers to start. I think all the preparation comes in well before. So, for those of you in the position where you're going to be doing, that 3 or 4 45-minute sets of covers, I think just learn your standards. You could prepare for that gig well in advance. And I went on some different websites and I just Googled cover band standards. And there were loads of websites that had lists, the top 100 rock cover songs, the top 100
That's a great idea.
Cover songs, and just know that material. Years ago when I studied with Zorro, he said, you want to make it, learn all the standards and learn all the styles, and then be able to play any standard within any style.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so you learn New York. Okay, see if you can play a New York reggae version. Or how about New York hip hop version? And I thought about man, that kind of does cover all of the bases. So it's all about preparation beforehand. The other thing I would suggest, and we drilled it probably a lot on this show, is really learning to read music. There are websites out there that have drum charts. There's numerous websites. First off, Drumeo has this huge library of drum charts. That's why my favorite thing about Drumeo. There's classic rock drum charts. There's Drum Score. There's just a million different sites out there, and so I think it's a great idea to start making a collection of PDF drum charts. I have that on my iPad. So this little thing has like thousands and thousands of drum charts that I can access just on the fly. So, right, set it up on a stand to the left. You know what? I don't think anyone cares if you're reading a chart, as long as you're laying down the part and doing your job, you know. And so if there's a drummer in the crowd going, "You're reading a chart," screw that person. Who cares?
Mhm.
They're there to do a job.
I'm doing the gig. You're not. Shut up.
Yeah. You're just there to do the job to your best ability. So I'm not saying, have your head in a chart like this the whole time. I mean, you don't want to wreck the show, but I think that's really, really vital. And then definitely making arrangement charts. That I think that's really, really the key. Intro. Who counts off? Like start off. Like who counts off the song? How many bars intro? Some drum instruction. There's a great book, How to Write a Fast and Easy Drum Chart. That book lays down a great format for writing out your own arrangements. So, right, 8 bars verse, 4 bars pre-chorus, chorus is 12 bars. Write it all out, and then think it's really good to communicate with the band. Do they want your take on the song, or do they want it to sound exactly like the song? So.
I agree with that. Communication, I think, is everything, Rick. Yeah.
That's it. And then I think we're all going to agree on this. You have to live and breathe that music. You have to listen to it all day long, while you're brushing your teeth, while you're taking a shower. Hopefully you do those things.
Yeah.
That goes back to the difficult band members episode with some of the people I played with. Hygiene. So
I got stories there.
Yeah, we have a lot of stories. And I'd be like at the gym listening to music, in my car, just listening to these songs over and over and over.
Yeah.
So that's a good start. Another thing I've had some fun doing with some of my students is showing them my real world task as a teacher. They come in for their lesson and I say, okay, I've got to learn this song, and show them the process that I might go through in learning the song. And that's actually the lesson. And if it's the right student who's open to that, I've had some amazing lessons that way, where my student was like, I never would have thought of making an arrangement chart like that. And thanks for sharing that with me. So, and then in the process, sure, I'm listening to the song, getting to know the song better. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
very cool.
What about you, Chip? What do you do?
Man, for me, I don't know, man. It depends on how the last minute gig is.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend being on your toes, being warmed up, and having your ears on you, making sure that you're listening and you're able to interact with the other band members. And getting as much information about the songs as you can. That's all I really know. I mean, that's in the past I've done last minute gigs, but I've had the help of like maybe the bass player is the musical director, and he can help me go through and cue me on some songs, on some of the parts that I don't know.
Yeah.
I just basically show up with bells on and be ready to play with my ears open.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's all about the ears, right? Because you could learn
man.
a song note per note on the record, and then you get to the gig and the band is playing it differently. So you've got to adapt to the band you're playing with.
Right. That's a big one.
What about you, Jeremy?
I have a lot to say on this topic, just because I've had so many gigs in so many different circumstances that have been very last minute. And one of the things that Rick said that's I think is important is depending on the type of gig, communicating with the band leader about what the expectations are. So if you're getting a call for a band that's playing original music and you've never heard it before, or a mix, say, okay, look, I don't have enough time between now and the gig to do any preparation. So, I'm happy to go in there and do my best. And if that's cool with you, that's cool with me. Right. And sometimes like, hey, I just need a drummer. I've heard good things about you. You'll be great. Follow your instincts. Terrific. In that case, just like Chip said, I'm using my eyes and ears. I'm listening really hard. I'm whispering to the bass player in between tunes. Hey, what's the vibe on this one? What's the time signature? And maybe I'll just say, hey, is this, Beast of Burden as a reference? Is this, Back in Black? What's the feel of the tune? What genre? What am I going for? And, then I'm listening. And, so many of those, if it's like a country thing or a rock or a pop thing, a lot of those tunes are really easy to predict, man. You can make really good educated guesses about what's happening next because you've played so many of those tunes. You know how the songs are structured. You know that the verse leads to the chorus, usually leads to the second verse, second chorus. Then there's a bridge or a solo, and it comes down to a verse that's often broken down. So, you're not always going to guess right. But if you're watching the body language also, not just for, if the bass, hopefully someone's giving you cues and has got your life preserver tossing out to you every so often. But, you can watch the singer when they take that deep breath and their shoulders rise up. Here we go to the chorus. Right?
Yep.
So, put in the fill and you're going to anticipate that change. And I had a gig one time. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. One was about a last minute gig, mostly original music, kind of country, roots rock, Americana stuff. Relatively easy gig for us. And I said, look, I don't know, it was the next day and he wanted me to, it was like 30 original tunes. I'm like, I have zero time between now and tomorrow. I was like, that's all right. I just need a drummer. Showed up, knew the bass player, had played with him before. He was really good about cueing. I was listening. I was paying attention. He'd give me all the stops. I nailed every one of the stops. At the end of the gig, the guy came up to me, the singer-songwriter. He said, man, how did you do that? It's like you've been playing in my band for months and you hit all the right things at the right time. And I was like, wow, thanks, man. I was just listening hard, paying attention, and, got a lot of help from the bass player. I ended up playing in that band for 3 years because he was so impressed with how well I did with no rehearsal. Right. So just, relying on your instincts. That's all the preparation that Rick's talking about. You don't know that you're preparing for that gig, but all the work you do over the years as a drummer and developing and learning tunes and learning styles and paying attention to song structures, that is what the work that prepares you for that gig. So
you're learning your vocabulary.
Yeah. Vocabulary, not just like beats and fills, but like, structures and styles, and feels and grooves.
Yep. Right.
And so, halftime funk shuffle. Got it.
Right.
16th note, kind of Bill Withers, one-handed 16th. Got it. Reggae. Got it. One drop. Got it. Swing, shuffle, Chicago shuffle. Got it. I know have all these touchstones for all these different styles are. So I know how to sort of jump in and make it feel like it's authentic, even if I'm going to miss a couple of the endings or whatnot, because I don't know them. Another story I'll share is I got a call from a guy, and this time I had a little more preparation time. I had like a week, and it was also mostly original music. And again, it was like 3 sets. And I wasn't gonna have time to like memorize all the tunes, but I made those arrangement charts and I wrote my notes, 4-bar intro. This is the tune in this style. Here's the break, hit this figure. I'd write in, just mostly words with numbers of bars. And I'd write in like a figure in rhythm as to where something specific was supposed to happen. And I remember before the gig, we're having lunch where we got fed beforehand. And I was asking a couple of questions like, hey, in this song, in bar 17, is the stop here or here, or, what happens? And I could tell the guy was like, uh-oh. He was like rolling his eyes like, oh man, this guy's going to be lost at sea here. He's asking all these little detailed questions about things. And we played the gig and I nailed it. And afterwards he was like, oh man, you far surpassed my expectations about how prepared and how well you knew the material. I was nervous when you're asking those questions about, dotting these I's and crossing these T's, but now I see that was like your last level of detail that you were going for. And man, it was great. So, it's learning the skills, it's preparing as best you can. And then when you can't at all, you got to listen, you got to pay attention, and you got to vibe it, and you got to try to make the music feel good for those long chunks where you're just grooving and not
Right.
having to hit any specific figures that you're going to have to watch and, catch on cue.
Right. Groove, time, and
Yes.
feel.
Yeah. Groove, time,
Yeah.
and feel. How about you, Bart?
The same, I'm going to echo pretty much everything that you guys, said. And then what I'll do, like, I'll make, the arrangement charts or cheat charts or what have you. And I've had this happen to me before where I got to a gig. It was a church gig. It was a worship thing. And the worship leader had sent over all the songs, but he forgot to include one. And I was like, everybody was like, we never got the tune. Well, he really wanted to play it. So blank piece of paper and a Sharpie, and I got the song on my phone. So literally what I did is I listened to the song first. I'm just kind of giving a quick reference here. And I draw out on the top of the page, basically, the groove to the song. Okay. And so real simple groove there, groove to Back in Black. That's what I wrote out. Then I write, and again, I'm going fast because we're going to play this song in 10 minutes. So I literally will do intro, 4 bars, and then verse 1, let's say it's 8 bars, and then chorus, 8 bars, verse 2, let's say it's 16 bars and doubled. Chorus, second chorus is still 8 bars, and we got the bridge, and it's going to be 8 bars again. Like Jeremy said, these are predictable. And then I draw a little cheat chart just like that, right?
Nice.
So literally intro 4 bars, verse 8 bars, chorus 8 bars, second verse 16 bars are getting more into the story. The chorus goes 8 bars, and we get to the bridge for 8 bars. The solo, well, you got to double the solo because every guitar player needs 16 bars of solo. So you do 16 bars of solo and then 32 bars for a chorus out, maybe a breakdown in there. Quick cheat chart like that. Then the other thing that I'll do is if I have the time, I'll go into a little bit more detail. But the first and foremost, the most important thing is on my phone. I use the Soundbrenner Pulse metronome. I tap the tempo of the song, and I give myself the tempo of the song. So then I write down quarter note equals 108. So I know the quarter note is 108. And then if I know the next thing that I do, and to me this is super important, I write down the opening lyric to the song. Right. So whatever the opening lyric is, ooh, baby, baby, baby. I love Jeremy Steinkuhler. Ooh, baby, baby.
I love that song.
That's a great tune.
Yeah.
But that's how it,
swings,
you know
man.
it. You know it. Yeah, that's it.
It's
Yeah.
such a swingy song.
That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Slightly swung the whole bit. I write down that opening lyric, right? And so then that way what happens is when I'm sitting there and I'm like, crap, I just heard this song. Why can't I remember it? I have that opening lyric. Okay, yeah, it kind of, there's the vibe. There's the groove. I wrote that down. Here's the count in. He told me to count it in and bring us in. 108. Look at my tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bam, and we go. Another thing I like to tell people, and this is really important, the count ins. If I'm the guy counting in the song, I always ask the person that I'm playing with, how do you want me to count them in now, or how do you want me to count you guys in? Because in the Sam Morrison band, I've been doing the song forever. I know the book, or the show forever. I know the book. So in between songs where Sam's getting, kind of doing his thing and he's talking, I have the click in my ears. So really lightly, not so that anybody can hear in the audience, or I'm not banging through the overheads, I'll give the band this so the band knows where we're going. Sam says his last word, 1, 2, 3, doom. So the band already kind of has the vibe going. They're feeling the pulse. So I bring us in and it comes in strong. Well, I'm so used to doing that on that gig I was talking about was at the same church. It was a habit for me, right? So the worship leader's up there talking, and I'm just used to giving the band time. Well, the first time I played with them, the band thought I was counting them in.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so
yeah.
that was on me. I blew it. So have that conversation with the band leader. How do you want the song counted in? How do you want me to count us in? Or do you want somebody else to count us in?
Yeah.
I got something else, if I may.
Yeah.
I had a gig not long ago. Actually, I've just started playing with a new band up here. It's called the Bonafides. It's a New Orleans R&B band. That's some of my like home style favorite stuff.
You like that stuff? I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew.
So we're playing, and there's a few tunes we're playing that I've never heard, and it's cool. It's kind of loose instead of a busy bar, and so not people aren't paying attention. Not a high stakes gig. And we played a section that had these stops in it, and I missed them because I didn't know it. Yeah. And we get to the end of the section, and I lean over, I go to the piano player, who's the band leader. I said, "Let's do it again. Do that section again. I want to catch those hits, right?" And he's like, here we go, chorus again, right? And let's do the thing. And I got most of them the second time, and I got them all the third time. And afterwards, he was like, "Man, I love that you did that. I love that you said let's do it again," because I played with another drummer I was auditioning for the group, and he wrote out all these charts for himself, and like we couldn't deviate from them. And he was really rigid, and his head was in the chart, and he wasn't paying attention. He wasn't listening.
Yeah.
We couldn't, extend things or do things over. And, you were there with us. You were paying attention. I made eye contact with you. So that's an important piece of the puzzle too,
It is.
Improvising and changes on the fly. And yeah. It's different if you're playing a jazz gig. There's an expectation. Like if I got called for a jazz gig, unless we're playing original material, there's likely going to be no rehearsals.
Right.
Often,
Often.
What kind of how big the gig is. If it's just like a local, club or bar, it's not uncommon to go in with no rehearsal at all, because there's an expectation that everybody knows the standards, everybody knows the tunes.
Right.
And it's all about what happens with the improvisation and the conversation, and endings are kind of standard and what you would expect, and people are saying da 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 da, and all these ways that you've heard these tunes end before, so most people know them. But there can be an occasion where you're on a gig as a jazz drummer and someone calls a tune you don't know. That certainly happens. Now I don't know that one. Well, that's okay. It's just a swing. It's just a bossa. It's just a funk, right? They tell you the groove and that's it. And then from there, you're sort of like, again, paying attention as you go and trying to hear the melody the first time so you can catch kicks the second time. And yeah, that's all.
I think it's interesting. I think a lot of players consider jazz to be fully improvisational, but they don't realize that, no, there is a song there.
Oh.
There are hits.
Oh, yeah,
There is an arrangement. You're improvising within that arrangement. It's
That's
not
right.
just total chaos.
And I can hear a mile away when the drummer knows the tune and when the drummer doesn't know the tune.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah,
Right?
You're right.
Because the punctuation all is musical and relevant and makes sense versus random sounding and like, they're just playing a swing feel, which is okay. The music's swinging, but it doesn't feel like it's connected to what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back, Bart, to your click counting in and how you do that with the Sam Morrison band, I think that's just brilliant, because you're playing with a click. So that's the hardest thing ever, is establishing the tempo, and you're working with a click. I mean, so I could already tell you Sam Morrison band is tight because you're working with a click, and night after night that tempo is going to be the same. And
Bart,
I bet you're so good with playing with a click now that it just grooves and it's just fine.
I appreciate that. The thing about playing with the click, that I like it because, we're all human, and I've played the songs a bazillion times, right?
Yeah.
But there might be that one night where, man, I'm just kind of tired tonight, And
Yeah.
and so you're you want to you're going to naturally lay behind the groove, and that's happened before. I'm like, God, I feel like we're just cooking. And I look down, well, no, it's the same place I played it every night. Or there's the times where, man, the House of Blues over in Anaheim at Disneyland, it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
But had any of you guys ever played there?
Mm-mm.
No, but I've been there a few times.
Okay, when you're sitting on that stage and the curtain opens up, right? The way that stage is built, the audience, the balcony, it's like they're right there. It's weird when you're on the stage. It's like, whoa, these people are like, they're right in your face. The people on the balcony, like you can almost reach out and touch them. So the curtain opens up. Well, then poof, the adrenaline goes.
Mhm.
Well, you're going to want to rush. So the click is a great tool to to kind of just check yourself, really, more than anything. And it's funny because sometimes the the band members, they're gonna feel it differently too. And so if they're having a night where they're a little tired and they want to lay back, or they're excited and they want to rush, and you're holding them steady, it's that double-edged sword. Everybody's like, they want to have a really good solid drummer, but then the drummer's playing solid and playing to the click, they might be, you're too rigid,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a good tool. It's a great tool. It's just like, and we don't play to tracks. There's a lot of bands that do, and I'm not knocking anybody that does. I play to the click and the band plays to me. So that's the way we work it.
There it is. I'd say if you had a rehearsal, if you did have an opportunity to have a rehearsal and it was a lot of songs and it was a short rehearsal, establishing the tempo collectively would be the thing to do in the rehearsal.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And how the song is going to start and then how the song is going to stop. So if you get those three things,
Yeah, that's right.
Fill in the blanks from there.
Yeah.
And even if you're doing a sit-in, right, last minute gig is the topic, but let's say you're sitting in with a band and they're like, "Hey, Rick, you're in town. You're the greatest. Come up and play with the band." And okay, well, how does it? Look over to the bass player. How does the song end? Because on the record it fades. Oh, we go shibbity bapa bzz bzz sigga baka 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 ba bow rigga bugga bra bra. Glad I asked,
Yeah. That's how mostly bands are going to communicate with us with what they want. They're going to sing the rhythm.
Yep, exactly, dude. Totally.
They're not going to give you it's 1 EN2 and a 3 EN4. They're not going to do that.
They don't.
In fact, might even think that that's not cool. They want you to be able to just to establish what they sing and perform what they sing.
Yeah.
And so it's a good.
I've got one for you guys that was a weird last minute gig, and I know this is rare, but it has happened to me. And I'll throw it out there because this is one you have to think through. Yes, you have a band leader, but you got to kind of think through it as an individual. Okay. A number of years ago, Sam Morrison Band, we had a gig come in that it was this guy was at an Indian casino down in the Four Corners area of Colorado. And they called Sam, looking for us. He didn't seek the gig out. They sought us out. And so he goes, yeah, we'll do the gig. It was for a tribal thing. It was like a private thing for their tribal community on the Indian casino. I played that song. I played that too. But it was and so he gave them our price and everything like that, and they said, okay, great, let's make it happen. Sam goes, all right, give me the date and we'll get it on the books and see if we're open. And the guy goes, oh, it's Wednesday. And we're like, huh? This Wednesday? So Sam calls everybody in the band, and we scrambled and we went out and we did the gig. Now, when that happened, at the time, I was okay. I made it happen. Now, this was when I was younger, and I not it wasn't that long ago, but it was one of those things where it was. I was just more like, okay, yeah, whatever it takes. But now I kind of think back to that gig, and I think to myself, well, okay, everybody in the band had to go through the stress of rearranging their schedule, because I think the phone call did come in on a Monday. I really do. I think it was like Monday, and then we played that Wednesday. It was that short of a notice. So everybody in the band had to disrupt whatever it was they had during that week, because you had a day of travel, you had the gig, and the day of travel home, and it was just a one-nighter. That's all it was. So we get everything together. I had to displace 3 days worth of students and either cancel them or move them to different days. So now the rest of the week is shot. All this stuff had to happen. And then you end up looking at it's like, okay, we played the gig and I got paid for the gig, but did I make as much as I would have just staying home and doing 3 days worth of students, with a last minute gig like that after all the expenses are taken off the top of the band? So you got to kind of ask yourself sometimes, well, is the juice worth the squeeze? Do I really want to disrupt 3 days to go do this gig? And yeah, you're hired by a band to do that job. And do you tell your band leader, hey, maybe you might want to find a sub? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I would do it. If I was put in that situation now, I don't know that I would do it, is what I'm saying.
I get those calls fairly frequently, and for me, it's just always a judgment call on a case by case basis. I've got to weigh the factors. There's the bread, how much it pays. That's a piece of it, and how much I'll lose if I'm going to lose any by canceling students. But it's not all.
Can you move those students? Because
first,
right. Do I have a day where I can put these students elsewhere? Right. And are they willing to move? Because you got all those students and you're disrupting their time.
That's right. And if they can, it's kind of a no-brainer. Oh, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can teach, I can pay the gig, and I won't lose any money. Great. But usually it's not that simple. It's like, not all. You're gonna have to lose some students. So, part of it might depend on who the students are and what's going on with them right now, and the groove that they're in with me. And part of it might be my relationship with the band leader, and is there trust? Like, hey, they expect that I'm not going to be able to make all the gigs, and I'm losing money if I take it. They understand that. No problem. I'll find a sub. Have they taken care of me in other circumstances where they paid me more than they said they were going to, or, the gig was canceled, but they paid me anyway? So is it a relationship where I want to make sure I do a favor for them and take care of them? And how important is this gig to them? Is it not that big a deal to get a sub, or even if they don't have to do it? Or is this a really important gig that, some record company, A&R people are going to be at? Or, well, then I might try to, even though I might lose some money, I might take the gig anyway to do them a favor or to take care of them, keep the relationship solid, and that kind of thing.
This fits into a little bit into our last episode on dealing with difficult band members. And I was talking about getting lots of agreements before you get the ball rolling with with a commitment to the band.
Right.
That's one of the great questions. Do you expect me as a drummer to be on call for you?
Right.
Because that might not be my availability. So maybe I'm not the right drummer for you.
Right.
Are we going to take every gig under the sun? Are we going to go off on tour for 2 weeks doing original music with no pay, or unknown pay?
Well, and sometimes there's no we. It's just the band leader, and you're the drummer that's being hired. And is that the dynamic? Is that the relationship where what's the expectation about your availability and your commitment level? Are we all in this together as equal band members and equal partners, and we have to all be there at the gig to make the gig go? If I can't do it, the band can't play. Or am I being hired on a case by case? Am I more of a mercenary? Am I a sideman? May have been hired gig by gig, or am I part of the band, or something in between?
Right. And we certainly know if you're a younger player trying to break into a scene, you kind of need to take as many gigs as you possibly can, because usually one gig is going to lead to another. So you've got to define that for yourself, or maybe, we're all a little more experienced by decades. And
Decades.
Nice, well played.
decades, yeah. And you know, we might be like, yeah, have to really consider, Bart, what you're saying. Like, well, I don't know if I can take that gig. I have to, you know, sometimes you have to know when to turn down a gig. And
That's right.
and I always think what's in the best interest of the band, you know, if you know, I'm happy to refer out another drummer if I think that other drummer might do a better job on the gig and,
Right.
and perform better and have the time. And that's not just for a live gig, that's for a studio session
Right.
also.
Right.
And then hopefully one day, you know, you're giving out, you're making good referrals. You only want to refer people who you know are going to be outstanding. You know, if
Yeah,
they
never
if-
refer a drummer that's worse than you. Don't do it.
don't do it. Don't do it. It's your
Refer
reputation
somebody that's
on the
way
line.
better than you, if you can. You know,
Yeah.
really.
Chip, were you going to say
Exactly.
something?
Yeah, Chip.
No,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you're surviving a last minute gig, you're probably a mercenary to begin with.
Right.
You know,
That's right. No,
Well
that's a good
said,
point.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you
Wow.
know, one thing that goes along with that we haven't maybe hit on exactly directly today is attitude. You know,
Yeah.
like if I'm getting called for a last minute thing, I've got to go in there with a positive attitude. I'm not going to be able to get up. I'm not going to nail everything. I'm not going to get all the endings. I'm not going to get all the hits. I'm going to do my best with the skills that I have
Yeah.
to listen and pay attention. And you know what? I'm going to let that stuff that I missed just go right over off my back. Like I can't get hung up on, oh man, I missed that ending. Of course I missed it. You know, I didn't know it. And it's got the syncopated thing that 4-bar figure that Bart was, you know, vocalizing earlier. I'm not going to get that. So, you know, maybe I do something in there. I play straight 16ths, or I just drop out even, you know, or try to watch for the last hit and get that. But whatever, like you got to kind of laugh it off. And if, you know, one of the things that Gary had mentioned in his note to me about what inspired this episode, he said, I'm taking these last minute gigs and the attitude of the people that hire me is not cool. And
Yeah.
I'm feeling very pressured, you know, to get everything right. And when I'm, you know, and I think that's part of the issue. Like your attitude has to be good, and that can also help them have a different kind of attitude about it. When your attitude is positive and like, hey, you know, you're laughing it off when something went wrong, because of course things are going to go wrong.
You know,
And then you just have to be clear with your communication beforehand about expectations, like we said before.
Yeah.
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 I didn't mean to step on you there, Jeremy, but Gary, I want to echo some. I want to expand upon what Jeremy just said. If you're getting hired to do a gig, and I think that if you're feeling pressure from yourself, that's awesome, because you want to go into, you never want to phone in a gig, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you always want to go into a gig swinging and ducking, giving it everything you got, trying to hit the big notes when you can. Everything that we're talking about here, having big ears, communicating with the bass player. You want to take the job serious. You know, we're professional musicians, and you get to that level because you do take the job serious, not because you phone it in, and not because you know, you can't play. But if you're working with a band leader that makes you feel low about yourself, well, dude, you missed that one phrase, or, you know, the tempo wasn't where I wanted the tune, or whatever. Maybe you're working for the wrong guy, because you shouldn't walk away from a gig feeling, you know, yeah, I've walked away from gigs with my tail between my legs going, man, I just did not play well. We look, I'm just gonna say it. We all have those times. We all have those gigs. You don't always have a good day at work, you know. I mean, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between that. Like, God, I just had an off day. I just couldn't get it together. Hopefully those are few and far between. But there's a big difference between that, and I thought I did pretty good for the circumstances, but man, that band leader was just a dick. You know, I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
you don't need that kind of pressure. You know, I mean, there's a way. I mean, there are students out there that need drum lessons. There's other areas where you can make a buck as a drummer, and you're not, and you're going to feel appreciated.
Yeah,
Yes.
man, that's really well said, Bart. And you know,
That's right.
so we were talking last week when we were discussing this thing about dealing with difficult band members, about how much invested we have in the music, and how how somebody, who was it, Rick, who said that some of my best life moments have been playing music with other people.
That's right. Yep.
It's like it has the potential to really be this amazing, uplifting, soul validating, fulfilling experience. And here you are, you've practiced all your years and you've played with all your bands and you've developed the skill set and the acumen. You go into the gig, you called for the last minute, you do your best, which is all you can ask for under the circumstances. And if the vibe isn't happening, the band leader's a dick or you're getting shit on, like, forget that, man. Like, why are you in this in the first place? You know?
Yeah.
Like, you're in it for all those reasons about it being really fun and enjoyable and soul and satisfying and fulfilling, and hopefully you make some money out of it too.
Yep.
And you know, how much are you willing to endure? You know, when it's not.
Absolutely, man. I just won't work with assholes. That's it. I'm like, if there's a red
company
flag,
excluded, though, right?
Sorry, I'll see you, Rick. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to jack up your day.
Right?
I wouldn't work with me. I said that last week.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've
either.
said it before. The best person in the band is the person who lifts everybody up.
Yes.
You know, who makes the show the best, who's giving cues and giving nods, like, yeah, you know, and who's fun to play with. It's supposed to be fun. And I think if you're really a good musician and really passionate about it, you know, maybe you can turn down a gig here and there because, you know, let's lift the vibe. Let's put ourselves in great positions and enjoy this art that we have here.
Well, yeah, because I mean, what are you taking the gig for? Is it? I mean, if it's just for money, or is it, you know, reputation, or make some connections? But it's got to be a positive experience. You know, these people you want to be playing with again.
Right. Yeah.
Completely.
Good afternoon to Jim Royal watching on the East Coast. Thanks for tuning in, Jim.
Jimmy, me boy.
Connecticut.
Jim, would love to hear your stories, man. If you want to pop on here.
Exactly, man.
Sure, Jim's got some good stories. Hey guys, also a thought that I had too, with the last minute gig is not just coming in, showing up with drums. You know, you might be having an 80s gig and you want drums that, you know, that's where some hybrid percussion, you know. You know, you want some stuff that might sound like the recording if it's a cover band, right?
Well, that's just because Rick has been anointed with that technology.
Man.
That is a good point, Rick. Like bringing the right sounding drum kit for the right gig.
Right.
You know,
and that's why I'm all about the hybrid percussion. If you come in, but the song is, you know, with all this effect, you know, that could make the big difference, you know.
It could.
And even just acoustically, right? You know, I mean, I've got two kits, or I've got several kits. I don't just have two. Don't get me wrong. My wife would be like, two? Are you kidding? But I've got a jazz kit, a bebop kit, and I've got a rock kit. And I've got ways of going middle ground as well. I've got an 18, a 20, and a 22-inch kick drum. I've got 10, 12, 13, 14, 16-inch tom-toms. So I can, you know, with between whatever 3 or 4 different drum sets, you know, bring the right kit for the right gig with the right head combination that's going to sound the way it's supposed to for the gig.
Right, man. You don't want a Neil Peart kick for a jazz gig.
And you don't want a jazz kit for a Green Day show.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, one of the things we've been talking about too with the last minute gig is with the band leader thing, right? And what the band leader, their vibe is and their expectations of you are. Let's put ourselves for a second that we are asked to put a band together for something. And as a drummer, you know, you're a band leader and let's say you're hiring 3 musicians, okay? Or you're hiring 2 musicians. You're going to put a jazz trio together. So you need a piano player and you need a bass player. You know, Jeremy, who are you going to hire? What are you going to go about? What's the thought process going to go through in your head to hire this piano player and bass player to pull off a lunch gig at a restaurant for 3 hours?
Bart, that's a great question. I love that you turned it back on us. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about the players I know who are really good, who are easy to work with, who are trustworthy and reliable and show up on time, and who enjoy playing and have the right sort of values about the gig. You know, I don't care. I'm not going to necessarily call the best player and the best bass player in the Bay Area the best piano player, because that's, you know, depending on their personality and their vibe, that can be fraught and a much less enjoyable gig.
Yep.
You know, it's not just less enjoyable because of the vibe, but like musically, you know, it's like with jazz, especially, it's all about that interaction, right? I'm not just like setting apart and forgetting it. I'm not just chopping wood, you know, it's all about this interplay. And so do you have musicians who are cooperative and simpatico and are like into getting into it with you and, you know, making the vibe happen together, and they enjoy it when you comp behind them and play figures that, you know, are playful, you know, and responsive? Or you get someone who's a total monster who can just like, you know, all up and down the keyboard, who isn't listening to anything you're doing.
Right.
And there's no like cohesion to the group. It's just like this amazing piano player who's got a backup drummer and a bass player, you know?
Yeah.
I've done that. I've played both of those gigs. And there was a time when I had a every other week gig at a club in San Francisco in North Beach, a lot of tourists, and I could bring whatever trio I wanted. I had this for 2 years running. And I called I was 23, 24. I called like every week I would do something different. And I would call some of the best musicians that I knew of or heard of in the Bay Area. And then I call other people who weren't on top of the heap. And you know what? Most of the time, the best gigs were not the ones with the most amazing players.
Yep.
Because the vibe was different. They weren't, you know, they weren't into playing, whatever. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
There's obviously great players who are you know, terrific listeners and great vibers and all that. Just saying.
Right.
It's not always that.
Exactly. Rick, what about you?
I definitely just keep thinking about this. If you want to establish yourself, become a band leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you'll really get known that way, and then you're going to be hiring people, and then when they have gig opportunities, they're going to think of you. It's like, ooh, I'm going to hire Jeremy because he hired me for a gig. So
right, it does go back and forth. That's right.
Yeah.
And what did we say last week? Leadership is everything, and I firmly stand behind that. Leadership is everything.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then of course, you know, you really, as a band leader, then you start really thinking about, well, hey, I really want to pay my players really well too.
Oh, that's a really good topic. This is not at all related to the last minute gig, I guess, but we could talk about that. Like, when do you lose money to pay the players?
Right.
You know,
George Thorogood. I saw an interview with him. I forgot. It was Sammy Hagar that interviewed him on Sammy Hagar's Road Rules. And he asked George Thorogood, he goes, how do you keep the band together as long as you've had? Because the Delaware Destroyers have been the same band forever, right? And he goes, well, I treat them like family and I pay them really well. My name's on there. I get paid everything, but I pay them really well.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You got to treat them with respect. I don't care if you're swinging I don't care if you're swinging drumsticks or you're swinging a hammer. You got to get paid for what you do.
And you got to guarantee pay. You know, even if you're playing a gig for the door, if you're hiring let's take that jazz trio again. Let's say the restaurant isn't guaranteeing $300, $100 a person. Let's say they're saying, well, you make tips and we'll give you a meal and you'll make $100 total, which again is not a gig I would take. But if I did, I'm guaranteeing the bass player and the piano player $100 a piece, because that's the going rate, and that you got to be respectful of their time and their musicianship.
Yep.
It's one thing if they're teenage kids and they're just happy to get a meal and, you know, some tips, but if you're paying professionals who've dedicated their lives, you know, $100 for 3 hours, come on, that's $30 an hour. Plus travel time is $25 an hour.
Right.
I mean,
that's gas at $5,000 a gallon.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Yeah,
so
totally.
You got to at least take care of them. You can't.
And Jeremy, this goes back to the original question from your colleague there.
Yeah.
You know, if they're really difficult to work with, well, if you know, and like, should I bother playing with them? Well, how much are they paying you?
Yeah.
You know, if you need that money for rent, if they're challenging to work with, but they're paying really well, and you need that money,
take the money.
That's part of the job, man. Not every all work is friendly and fun. Ideally it is.
Right.
But we have to put food on the table. We have to, pay our rents and
Good point, Rick.
So,
It all depends on
Yeah.
your circumstances.
yeah.
Chip, what about you,
Exactly.
man? What do? You're putting the band together. Who do you call?
I'm putting the band together. I'll probably call one of my closest friends and and people that I've worked with a long time, Johnny Faber on the guitar and Neiman Lyles on the sax. I know that that's going to be taken care of. I'm going to get the bass player and put it together. I don't think that it's much different. I mean, if I'm doing a gig that's a last minute thing, I want somebody there that I can trust, who's a musician among musicians, who can play by ear and sound and cue and can feel out the situation and do what the situation entails. I think that's the way I go.
Yeah.
Well said.
There you go.
Yeah. And the vibe, we've said this, we had Tim Messina, couldn't remember his last name. He was the MD and the saxophone player for Brian Setzer Orchestra. And he came out and did some shows with Sam Morrison Band. And he also did some recording sessions with us. And he had been in Brian Setzer for years, and he's a really good guy, and again deserved the MD job. And so Brian made him the MD. And you got to realize Brian Setzer, that's a big band. I mean, there's a lot of people in that band.
Yeah, he knows
he's
what he's doing.
Totally. And he's a lot. He's like you guys, Jeremy and Rick. He's from the East Coast. He's from New York, and he's just, oh my God, he's the funniest guy. He just kept us in stitches the whole time. He goes, it was like Rodney Dangerfield is your sax player, He's like, man, as soon as I got the MD job, I didn't care how well you played. If you were a dick, I fired you. I got rid of all the dicks.
Right.
And so it shows you no matter what level you're at, nobody wants to work with a guy that is just a jerk or a girl that's a jerk. And I think sometimes, a missed note here or there is made up for by a burning passion for what it is that you do. And a missed note here or there, or maybe having, maybe his time didn't lock with me 100%. But man, he was a lot of fun to hang with, and the passion was there. That passion and the good hang make up for a multitude of sins, But if you're just, treating everybody around you like an idiot, then nobody wants to be around that.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah, man. And if you do make that mistake, man, don't let anybody know it. Just keep that poker face. I meant to do that.
Well, then you do it again, so then it's not a mistake you meant to do.
Coleman Hawkins said, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, great show,
folks,
guys.
Go
ahead, Rick.
Don't forget YouTube. You need to learn some stuff. Go to YouTube. There's videos of everything there. You can see covers and, what a tool that is. Talk about making our life easier.
Totally, man. Totally.
And what to not do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think you could watch a lot of our episodes and you could, just in a nutshell go, okay, don't do this. Because we talk about that a lot. We do.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, what's that? Let me see that jacket you're sporting. You're looking sharp today, man. Look at you.
Oh, it's a shirt.
Oh, it's a shirt. Looked like you had on a sports coat over your Sabian shirt there. Yeah.
With my Sabian shirt.
Yeah.
Oh.
Looking good, man.
So next week, our guest is going to be Reto Peter. Reto is an audio engineer and also a drummer. And he is a Bay Area guy, and he's worked with Green Day and some other really big bands. He's got massive credits to his name.
Right on.
So we're going to enjoy talking to him. And then the following week on February 7th is finally, fingers crossed, David Garibaldi from the Tower of Power.
Right on.
And for those of you watching this, we've tried to have David on here. This will be the third time, and every time there's been an issue with scheduling on his, something would happen and he just couldn't make it. So thank you for being patient with us, because come on, Garibaldi, we want to have him on here. So we're really excited about that. All right. So we did our good things. We told everybody who watches the show they're a deckhead. We've done all this fantastic stuff, and we talked about how to survive a last minute gig. I think we should here's a last minute gig. Rick Stojak, play us out. Thank you for watching us here on deck. I'm going to play along with Rick, try to be out of time.